Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by my dad, Steve Davis, and his colleague at Talked About Marketing, David Olney, in which they explore marketing through the lens of their own 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. Apart from their love of words, they really love helping people. So they hope this podcast will become a trusted companion on your journey in business.
David.
Getting worried already.
David.
Either that or he's constipated.
I am your father.
Nah, I'm not really convinced, Darth.
This is the episode called May the Life Forces Be With You.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. The aim of life is self-development, to realise one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us is here for. Oscar Wilde.
In the person segment, what we want to do is tease out something that at first glance might not seem like it's important or profound, but it really is. And it starts with reminiscing about fond things from our past. I just did it recently with my school years as part of the songwriting and song production I'm doing for my regular Saturday afternoon segment on 5AA, doing songs about different aspects of life in South Australia. I wrote one about the 2 years that I spent at Woodville High School, which were years 11 and 12. And the 2 things that came back to me, David, were doing a golf elective on Thursday with my 2 mates, Victor and David. We were allowed to hop on our bikes, ride to the Woodville train station, put the bikes on, go to Glanville station, and then ride from there to the par 3 golf course, play a few rounds of par 3 golf. And on the way back, we'd stop at the deli, the fish and chip shop, and we'd get minimum chips, which back then was about 40 cents. And a bit of extra change that we'd put through the pinball machine, and it was my highlight of year 11. Along with Mr. Murphy, who was a fantastic English teacher. And in year 12, my fond memory, despite being head prefect and doing the radio show at lunchtime and the quadrangle and all those sorts of things, was the fact that I did drama in year 12. The first year it was a matriculation subject in South Australia. 1 boy, 17 girls. It was a blissful year. And there was an onstage kiss in our play, which was another highlight. So there were a lot of teachers who put a lot of effort into those 2 years. But they're the 2 things I remember. And sharing that song has brought lots of smiles, joy, and reconnection with old school friends and my drama teacher, and even one of the music teachers at Woodville High School, all from the power, the energy of just some fond reminiscence. Do you have a fond reminiscence from your school years that just makes you think that was a sweet spot?
I don't have anything as specific as golf. One of the strangest things I remember about my final couple of years of high school is, we moved from North Haven to Gawler between year 11 and year 12. So I started my first day of year 12 at Gawler High going, I'm going to know nobody and this is going to suck. And it might have been one of the only days in my life where being the blind guy with a cane was actually an advantage, because within the first 15 minutes of the big start of the year assembly, where I knew no one and just kind of generally stood at the back, 3 people had come up and gone, David? Literally having remembered me from kindergarten in Gawler.
Wow.
And that is one of those amazing memories that you hadn't seen those 3 people since we were all 4. We were now 16, and yet they did the calculation. It's Gawler. How many blind people do you see who are your age?
And therefore, that external symbol of the cane was...
once, it was useful.
Yes, exactly. Interestingly, I was a new kid in year 11, which is always... It was my 3rd high school because Dad moved around a bit. And it is a horrible thing to have to start from scratch. That's why it even mentioned in the song that I volunteered in the school canteen, which gave me something to do during lunch.
Yep, and those first few miserable weeks of going, this is going to be terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, look, we might even play that song at the end of the episode. If you want to hear it, it's called Minimum Chips and an On-Stage Kiss. Nice way to finish the episode. But the reason we're talking about this is there is actually something good that happens when we have good memories. Even if the memories tempt us into thinking in a rose-coloured glasses kind of way that everything was nicer back then and life was simple, which we know probably wasn't the case. But these memories have some knock-on effects that are positive. And this came up in a conversation on the recent episode of one of my other favourite podcasts, David, called For Immediate Release. And this was something that was said by Shell and Neville in episode 486, in which they were talking about a trend emerging around marketers and PR people of rage baiting. So the brand deliberately says something nasty online to get reaction, so they win that currency of attention and commenting, even though there is a lot of downside. Let's have a listen to the boys.
Now, switch to the internal lens. This is an article from HR Dive. It was titled How Thirst Traps and Rage Bait Affect Workers on the Clock. It reports on research from the Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations. Researchers surveyed workers over 2 studies, asking them to reflect on the most salient social media posts they saw that day, how it made them feel, and how productive they were. The results? When people saw fit pics or family posts, they felt more self-assured and engaged, but when they consumed contentious content, politics, rage bait style posts, they felt anxious, withdrawn from coworkers, and less likely to engage productively. The takeaway: content that triggers emotional turbulence may carry hidden organizational costs, from distracted employees, reduced collaboration, maybe even increased attrition. So what should organizational communicators, that would be all of you, do with this convergence? Be intentional about how your external messaging may echo internally. If your brand is experimenting with provocative campaigns, calling out norms, stirring up debate, maybe even courting a little outrage, ask yourself, what are the internal ripple effects? An external campaign that invites polarizing reactions may energize some audiences, and I would argue possibly just in the short term, but internally, it could signal to employees, our company is comfortable being controversial. That could boost excitement for some, but raise discomfort for others. Communicators need to work with HR and talent teams to assess sentiment inside the organization. How are employees reacting, especially those who engage on social media during the day? Are we inadvertently creating internal friction or disengagement by the tone we adopt externally?
So yes, you do get attention if you rage bait, which means, deliberately provoking anger and vitriol. But the downside, I thought that was interesting, David, that other paper that they talk about is that internally, just not even thinking about external customers at the moment, but people working with you, if your company's involved in rage baiting, it puts people on edge. People become ready for fight or flight. That's what that sort of conversation does. They're anxious, they're nervous, they're withdrawing within themselves. Whereas if you were sharing more wholesome is not quite the right word, but enriching, warming, fond content, that's good, not just bland and boring, not Hallmark. People feel relaxed. And actually, and this would interest anyone in business, productivity goes up. Does that surprise you, David?
Not really, on the basis of the books I've been reading for the last couple of weeks, all about the trauma cycle and the fact that whether in a state of active stress or in a state of freeze shutdown, the reality is we're dysregulated, and when we're dysregulated, we don't make good decisions, we don't behave well, we don't interact well with other people. And for any micro bump you might get through rage baiting, you do it at your own peril, because all those people are going to bring that negativity back to you when they don't recover from that negative state and take it out on everything around them. So really, negativity is something to play with at your peril.
And that's certainly for the person segment in our daily lives.
Oh, I think it's everywhere. I have a friend I refer to as Grumpy Greg, because Grumpy Greg is permanently negative. He is his own worst enemy by the fact he chooses to see everything through a negative valence. The flow-on effect of that kind of negativity, it's just not worth the temporary attention.
So that's the personal level. But even if it influences how we think about the messaging we put out on behalf of our brands on blog posts and social media, surely being on the positive side of the ledger may not get the same volume of reach, but the quality connections there, you would have just made someone's life that little bit better, hopefully learning something from you at the same time that's valuable, but just making this place, this earth, worth hanging in a little bit longer for. I think that has a potential for a positive dividend from a marketing perspective.
If we look back 2 books back with Mark Schaefer, when he's writing about people will only do business people they know, like, and trust. The very important word in the middle there is like and trust. How can you like and trust someone who goes to the negative just for a social media response or a few extra dollars? It's breaking the cycle that is the only reliable cycle.
Well, I like you and I trust you, but do I really know you, David?
I'm not sure anyone really knows anyone, but as long as we know each other enough to make an effort to like and trust, then we'll know more about each other.
Okay, that's a date.
Our 4 Ps. Number 2, principles. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. Oscar Wilde.
David, recently you introduced me to a book that I would never, ever have picked up. Ever. I can't imagine any universe where I would have said to myself, oh, that looks interesting. The book's title is Cashvertising.
With a $sign as the S.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy.
Tacky. This is what I would imagine trying to make your way in Hollywood as a star and having to live in a $3 motel with those big fluorescent signs out there.
It would have said Cashvertise.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Eric Whitman is the author. And yet, you know how they say never judge a book by the cover?
Yep.
This is the casebook reason why. Because when you peel open those covers or listen to the audio as we do, there's gold in there at a principle level for all of us in business. And it revolves around, and this explains the Darth Vader voice at the beginning, the 8 life forces. Can you describe what these 8 life forces are, David? Then we'll just whip through them.
Yep. Well, bit of context. The reason I found this book was I actually wanted to pick books about copywriting to train some writers to become copywriters in my American job. And I did searches on Reddit and I used AI, and I kept getting told to read Cashvertising. And then I looked on Audible and it had over 500 reviews and a rating of 4.9 out of 5. I'm like, okay, the name's terrible. Fine, let's get on with it. What makes Eric Whitman the most remarkable guy is if you look at the appendixes in the back of his books, the books he recommends to read, he's recommending great books on advertising, marketing, copywriting going back to the 1920s. Like, he knows the history of how to write, how to persuade, how to influence, how to do it and still be ethical. So one of the big things that is the center of his books is the idea that if you can tap into people's biological drives, you're almost guaranteed that they will at least read your copy to its end, and that if they are feeling something to do with that biological need at the time, they will take your ad very seriously. So there's 8 life forces and there's 9 wants, and his recommendation is don't write any marketing, advertising, sales material that doesn't touch on at least one of these life force 8 or one of the 9 wants.
And we're going to whip through at least the life force 8 in 2 seconds, but there's one aspect here. long copy versus short copy. So this is where I hear people say, in fact, had someone this week saying, I've been talking to my designer and we think we need to cut out more of the words off the website and just have more pictures there. And I said, basically, we're talking marketing suicide at that point because we need the words, A, to teach Google and AI, but also to give the engaged human what they need. Whether or not, this is the point that the Cashfordizing author makes, whether or not they read it all, the fact that there's a lot there carries some weight. Because I've always been a guy who said, look, length does not matter. David, you've been the other end of the spectrum.
I have, because so much long writing is so bad. So my premise is, if there's 15 good sentences in something, why are the other 45 there?
And he gives the reason why.
Yeah, and I totally agree with his reason, which is start with something shorter to get the highest quality possible. And then when you get better, keep adding more and more and more. Because at the end of the day, the person who doesn't need much information is going to buy pretty quick in the process. The person who needs more reasons is going to keep reading. It's going to keep reading.
The following heuristic, however, is one of the most popular and effective, and you can start using it immediately. The length implies strength heuristic is a principle that exerts an influence similar to evidence. It's based on the assumption that a product or service is more likely to be viewed favorably if the ad is long and contains numerous credible facts and figures. It causes your prospect to say, in effect, wow, look at how much is here, it must be true. It's similar to listening to someone speak at length about a particular topic. Eventually, when you've heard enough, as long as the presentation was reasonably polished, you'd probably feel that the speaker knew what he was talking about. After all, he went on for so long. Of course, length itself doesn't mean something is truthful, but that is exactly how this principle works. Loading your ads with testimonials is one way to tune your prospects' brains to heuristic channel number 1. Another way is to write long, engaging copy. Not only does long copy give you more opportunities to persuade, but it also has the effect of causing prospects to believe that because there's so much copy, there must be something to it. This is the very essence of the length implies strength heuristic.
The real test is more is good as long as the quality is high. If the quality is not high, that's when you've got a problem.
Yeah, so we're not saying length for its own sake, but if you've got lots to say to roll out your argument, go for it.
Oh, length is strength. Yeah, it's one of his sort of 50 points you'll learn if you work in a good ad agency.
David, I think we need some talked about marketing T-shirts that say length is strength. Would you and I go walking down Rundle Mall on a Saturday night wearing that?
I will wear it because I don't have to look at the faces looking back at me.
Okay. I hope someone's taking notes of these ideas because we forget to take the notes. I'll hear it when we listen back to this. Anyway,
that's true.
We'll just touch lightly on each of the 8 life forces. So remember, what he's arguing here is when we're writing a web page, a social media post, an ad, a newsletter, have at least one of these life forces identified, when it's relevant to your people. And I will just make a note. We're doing the story brand process with anybody we work with these days, and we've just enhanced it to include looking for the life forces in it so that any writing that we do can have this extra power. So these are 8 things that all of us have lurking within our DNA that we are born with, and some of these are going to be more relevant to our product or service than the other. The first one is survival, enjoyment of life, and life extension. Give me your best take on that, David.
Well, how often does the ad for the security door or something else use fear? Safety is so powerful. And quality of life. Again, all the arguments for trying to go to the gym, or trying to eat better are either about a later life force or quality of life. So it really is the default one for so many industries.
Number 2 is enjoyment of food and beverages. That's sensory pleasure.
Yep. And if we think of the fact that when we were small children on TV, between, say, 3:30 and 6, there were endless ads for toys and junk food that have all now been banned because they were so powerful for our little brains. We were little sensory creatures that didn't have a lot of discipline, and we would go and say, Mum, where are the twisties? And Mum will be like, what? Well, TV talks about twisties. Twisties are great. Want twisties. And then you're an angry kid that doesn't want to eat your broccoli.
Number 3 is, talking of broccoli, for some, freedom from fear, pain, and danger. And this is where he's arguing that really fear appeals when it's used carefully. It can be very powerful.
Yep, and pain and danger. That really, the idea of pain and danger makes you think of fear. So don't try and necessarily hit pain as a raw nerve. But where is there something?
Fear
don't try and hit fear as the raw nerve. What's the pain and danger that people are really concerned about?
Which could be cutting yourself or getting a speeding fine.
Or getting locked out of the house when it's freezing cold and you're in your pajamas or whatever else. There's plenty of things where the pain or danger of it is actually, if you can make a case to help people not experience pain and danger, they'll be very grateful.
Now, some people might think number 4 is the David Olney one. It's sexual companionship. But you wouldn't agree with that, would you, Dave?
I'm not sure why that would be, sort of described as the David Olney one. I guess it's true, seeing I'm happily married, that I like that. Well, I think it's a bit weird if any human doesn't like that.
Yeah, fair enough. Have you ever seen David? I wish this was video, but this is our desire for sexual attraction, romantic attention, and admiration.
Well, companionship there too.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is hinting towards there is something more than immediate endorphins. There is also something more long term.
So I think we should have our T-shirts. On the front says "Length is strength," and the back says "There's more to it than immediate endorphins."
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 5 is comfortable living conditions. So this is seeking comfort and security. Gee, this reminds me of the pyramid.
It's very much Maslow's pyramid written for marketing. Yes.
So this is, we all agree with this. I mean, Maslow puts this more towards the front of you need basic place to live and water and those things.
But the strange one with this thing of of comfort is, I remember when we were looking at some ads for an air conditioning company, and we were going, why aren't they focusing on what people actually care about? Is the little toddler at a safe temperature? Is the great-grandparent comfortable? Like, they were kind of missing, like we were kind of seeing the LF8 missing from these ads.
Interesting that you draw that attention, because this is where there is nuance compared to Maslow. Maslow was talking about shelter, and here it's not just shelter, it's comfortable shelter.
Yeah, because we're beyond the absolute basics by this point. We want a little bit more.
Number 6 is to be superior, to be winning, to be keeping up with the Joneses.
And we know how much this is critical to any luxury product. There is no reason to have it except the reason that you can, and other people will understand that signal.
Interestingly, Mark Schaefer makes a point. We talked about it last episode, his book on what's the future of marketing like when AI becomes your customer. He talks about, as AI wipes out a number of white-collar jobs, the big, swanky BMW or Mercedes driving white-collar person with the Rolex or whatever's more expensive than a Rolex, when we're sort of reduced to living on a universal income, if that actually happens and you don't need to work anymore, or you don't need to be seen, or how do you need the status?
See, I disagree with sort of Mark Schaefer on this.
Okay, tell me.
I think Dan Kennedy's right. What we're seeing is the collapse of the middle class into people who have the education but don't have the financial resources, and what Dan Kennedy is calling, the mass affluent, those who have the same education but have turned it into always having disposable income and still having even more reason to signify, well, we went to university together, but you're living paycheck to paycheck. I'm on the third investment property. So the status, if anything, is going to be more ruthless, not less.
So that's what Mr. Cashvertising's saying. He's got 3 names, and that makes it really hard for me.
I've been trying to just say Drew Whitman because I find the minute I try and say Eric in the middle, I some reason trip up on his name.
All right. Drew Eric Whitman. So Dew, D-E-W. Number 7, care and protection of loved ones. This would be the Steve Davis rule.
And I think it's the kind of marketing you would like to do. You like marketing you like helping small business so that helping small business can make people's lives nicer. So you are very much, that is your big driver of the 8. You make jokes about the rest, but this is the actual big driver one for you, I think.
Oh, you're getting a bit under my skin here, a bit too close, David.
And I didn't even use any length.
No. Number 8, there's a little soundbite meme, social approval. Which ducks and weaves with a few of the other ones above, but it does stand alone. So we crave acceptance. We fear rejection from the tribe. Always have, always
will. Yep. And it doesn't matter if that tribe is really big or quite small. You still want to be seen by your people, or be seen to have some people.
Yeah. So there we are. There's the 8 life forces. Some of these, if not all of them, we'll put in the show notes. I probably should blog about them too, David.
Makes sense too, because it's such a core thing to get right. Like, my instructions to our new copywriters is, please don't show me anything that doesn't have at least one LF8 and at least one of the 9 wants. Otherwise, I'm just going to ask you to rewrite stuff.
Yeah. So I hope you find them useful. Even some of those might have resonated with you on behalf of the sort of clients you deal with or customers within your area of expertise. They're the ones to focus on. How do you capture that and draw it into what you're writing, which is what we do in the story brand framework these days now. But, a little bit of reflection. We talked about system 1 and system 2 thinking last time. Maybe some slow, reflective system 2 thinking on these in relation to your clients would be just what Darth Vader ordered. David.
I'm going to get my Drew Eric Whitman to put you back in your box, Darth Vader.
Try.
That sounds like a Nike ad.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. I asked the question for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity. Oscar Wilde.
In the problem segment here, our beloved AI, which we have, love-hate relationship might be a bit too strong. Love and on guard.
Useful tool, but bit of a tool.
Yeah. Claude is one of our favorites. When we have worked with you to develop a story brand framework to give Claude the right framework to talk about you as you, it's beautiful. It is beyond parallel. And as far as I'm concerned with the other tools, I think David agrees. Claude has really got the edge when it comes to the writing aspect.
For the humanist type stuff, yes, there's a real advantage.
Yep. So it was a bit of a pain 2 weeks ago at the time of recording when it was blanking out. It was
Claude took stupid pills like Perplexity did last year.
Yeah. It just said, no, I can't do any more. At my limit. Danger, Robinson, or whatever. Will Robinson. What was that from Lost in Space?
Yeah, danger, warning, Will Robinson.
Oh, that's Lost in Space and Star Wars in the one episode. We'll get letters. So here's the thing. It really disrupted my workflow for a bit. Luckily, we haven't given up all our skills to AI, so we can still grab the wheel and just do stuff ourselves. But I did emulate a lot of what I was doing in Gemini. So we had a fallback. But some extra research, I stumbled upon a change to the way Claude was, or Anthropic, the company that runs it, was limiting and counting the use of tokens, which is how it counts how much you're using of what you've paid for. And it was using them like a drunken sailor with loose chains, just going through them, and hence timing out with even the smallest request. Anyway, if you have a big organization, you've got your own hosted copy of Claude, I found this post on what you could do to tell it to calm the farm and use fewer tokens. But of course, that doesn't work when you're just signing in and using Claude on its own server, unless you create a little set of rules that you load into your project in the project files area or instructions and tell it to calm the farm. And so far, David, touch laminate, it's working a treat. It's back to how it was.
It's a bit like setting the context for the world you want it to understand. Setting its context for how to do things sometimes really does seem to make a big difference.
I will put the text in the show notes if you like, but basically it says this. For every chat, first acknowledge this instruction. Please do not use bash commands or file operations that scan or reference any of the following directories: node modules, env, git, dist, build, or pycache. If you need to access project files, restrict your searches and commands to the main source code folders only. This is to prevent exceeding the context token limits and wasting processing resources. Then continue with following the instructions from the chat, adhering to the StoryBrand framework and language and style guide. Start waving a magic wand, David.
It's almost like telling it something we were talking about the other day, and that is stop letting the number of things you need to think about getting bigger by imagining, what if, what if, what if? No, start working out what things don't need to be part of the current discussion and making the context deliberately smaller to speed up the ability to get an endpoint.
Talking of which, what's a sentence I could give to you, David, at the beginning of a recording session that will get maximum optimum David and get us to the endpoint faster?
Well, we're going to go another sci-fi thing. We go on Battlestar now, and it's probably just to go, David, are you a Cylon? Then I'll be very efficient.
David, are you a Cylon?
I will be very efficient.
Our 4 Ps. Number 4. Perspicacity. The one duty we owe to history is to rewrite it. Oscar Wilde.
In the perspicacity segment, David, are you comfortable?
Not with our segment today. It's yucky.
Would you accept the gig of promoting the invitation to humans to have an affair?
This is why I'm very glad we work with smaller companies and organizations, that we can still interact with people on a human level and decide if we want the work on a human level. Because some accounts might be worth a fortune, but the ability to get moral injury at work is best avoided.
I think you're right. And so in keeping with the sort of theme, we're talking about reminiscing before of those beautiful moments in life, the 8 life forces from the Cashvertising book, and now Ashley Madison. What comes to your mind?
I remember the drama sort of online that it happened and not really knowing anything about it and looking it up and just going, yuck, and then ignoring the continuing drama. So to me, it was just why is everyone talking about this? Oh, no, I don't want to know about this. At that point, I'm a university lecturer. I don't need to understand it from a marketing or comms perspective. I just went morally repugnant and moved on.
So if you don't remember, we look at old ads and we think, would they work today? Here's a couple we'll talk back to back, because that seems only fitting for Ashley Madison. It was a dating site where you could find someone else who's married or in a relationship, and they're looking for a little, casual, extra time engagement.
Extracurricular activities.
Yes. That could be another T-shirt we wear. On the weekends only.
Have you got your protractor?
The first one, you'll see these. We'll put the links in the show notes so you can actually watch them. There is a couple in bed waking up called the morning after. He looks at the empty whiskey bottle. He then looks at the woman who's made up to look not what you call the classic beauty. And then he stumbles off downstairs to leave until he sees the picture of his wedding, and that's the same woman. He's actually married, and then it's reminding him that maybe there's more to life than this. Let's have a listen.
Most of us can recover from a one-night stand with the wrong woman. But not when it's every night for the rest of our lives. Isn't it time for AshleyMadison.com?
In the next ad we're going to hear, it's in a restaurant, a couple waiting for it suggests it's a blind date.
Well, that's the sense you get at the beginning.
It is. He turns up, he's on a phone, he shushes her, he eyes off the other waitresses, and then at the end, he gets up and says, "Okay, got to go. Happy anniversary, darling," and disappears. So, and it was like, and as you hear, the suggestion is, wow, there's got to be more to life than this. Let's have a listen.
Hello? No, I'm not busy.
Have you ever found yourself on a really bad blind date? Now imagine that date lasting the rest of your life.
Yeah, I have to go. Happy anniversary, honey.
Isn't it time for ashleymadison.com?
Normally with the ads we look at, David, even if we don't think they work today, like the yellow pages and the man whose fly was undone and he's trying to put it up and he's looking at a reflection at an office window, not realizing that everyone behind it's watching him. Even though they're awkward and icky, there's still humanity and there's still fun. And these, though, I'm not a prude, but these make me feel cold inside. I am revulsed by these because that sexual connection is a life force, but surely it's a life force when it is natural. I think it's one thing to have an affair because you bump into someone and there's electricity and you forge it, and maybe that then puts your current situation into focus.
Into context, and you take some sort of forward step.
Yeah.
But the idea of these ads that you live in a negative and the way to solve your negative is to get a temporary dose of physical pleasure and continue treating yourself and someone else poorly. The terrible thing is that these ads are repulsive in their inhumanity, and yet I guess the inhumanity that this company has made a lot of money on will continue for as long as people don't take the hard decision to go, how do I want my life to be?
Well, there's a couple of life forces here. There's the fear of pain.
Yeah.
And these people, they're maybe in a not so good relationship and they don't have the courage or they don't think they've got the resources to support them if they leave. They feel trapped. So there's fear, as well as the biological attraction. That's probably the two main ones that are at work here.
Yeah.
And
a terrible angle, I think, maybe, of keeping up with the Joneses.
Would these work still today is a question. I would like to think they wouldn't, because we just had recently the CEO, I think it was Nestle, got caught having an affair with an underling, and that's against company policy. We had the astronomer CEO and his HR person being caught at the Coldplay concert. Would it work today, David?
I have a terrible feeling that it will still work for the group of people it was aimed at, where for some reason they think their life has to stay the same and they need an endorphin hit to feel better about themselves and to feel superior to people they're meant to care about. So I think, sadly, there's always a group of people these ads will work for, and the product will always have a use. And in a sense, it's to make sure that people who want to have affairs in the way the ads suggest and behave the way the ads suggest have a tool to do it behind closed doors and without attracting attention.
Well, it's interesting. I think you're right that it still has currency today. Ashley Madison's still running. 65 million members, it says.
Wow.
And it's the opening page is a close-up of a woman with big red lips, a finger against it like shh. And it says, Ashley Madison, keep your connections discreet. See your matches. There's an app for it. I think everyone is cheapened by this even existing and people playing. The fact that you've got to be discreet suggests at a basic level we're doing something wrong.
Yeah. And that somehow you're meant to be cool with that or excited about it. It's a very antisocial place they're recommending.
Wow. What personality type would be the one that feels quite at home here? Is it a narcissist?
I would assume so. And I imagine it's a playground for sociopaths.
Playground for sociopaths. I'm not going to wear that T-shirt.
No, thank you, no.
But I will say I think you're a connection with me, David.
Well, the great thing is we can be connected without ever having to go on that app.
That is so true.
Thank you for listening to Talking About Marketing. If you enjoyed it, please leave a rating or a review in your favourite podcast app. And if you found it helpful, please share it with others. Steve and David always welcome your comments and questions, so send them to podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. And finally, the last word to Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.